Protecting your Amazon brand from unauthorized sellers and counterfeiters is essential for maintaining your business success. In this video, you will learn how to protect your private label brand through trademark enforcement, copyright protection, and patent strategies, plus discover the proper ways to remove hijackers without risking your seller account. And if you need any help with legal matters, feel free to reach out to David Miller, the guest of this video.
Hello, David. Welcome to the Orange Klik YouTube channel. I'm very excited to have you as my guest today because today you're going to share your best tips for Amazon sellers about how they could protect their brand on Amazon. And you're going to also share us some trademark, copywriting, and patent strategies and insights. But as always, let's first start with your introduction because we want to know who you are, what do you do, and how do you usually help Amazon sellers?
Yes, thank you, Lisette. Thank you for having me. I am a lawyer for Amazon sellers. So we run a law firm and we specialize in assisting Amazon sellers with a variety of different issues. The most common are Amazon suspensions, trademark, copyright, and patent disputes. So that's both on the enforcement side, enforcing private label brands IP, and on the defense, sometimes there's seller versus seller battles, things of that sort. We also assist with when Amazon freezes seller funds, usually a pretty tough situation for many sellers to be in. And a lot of times it's their first time dealing with it. So we help them in terms of releasing those funds from Amazon, as well as assisting with the arbitration process. And we've even had our fair share of sell-throughs. So exiting when Amazon sellers exit their entire business, they sell their Amazon business. We've been, representing those sellers in those exits as well. So heavily Amazon seller focus and essentially help with all different types of legal and non-legal issues on the platform.
Okay, so with very important topics, and I think sometimes even with these topics, Amazon sellers are not even realizing the importance before they actually run into some issues, and then they are thinking like, "Hey, it would be so important to have like a nice resource or a partner to have to kind of solve those issues." And I know you were just recently at our European seller conference as well in Prague, and met many sellers, and probably all of them were kind of asking different questions about the things they are experienced. Or I also know that sellers are usually very eager to share their past experiences because I think there is not a seller who has not had any brand protection or trademark issues before, right? So I think today's video and topic is super, super important to cover because I assume your mission is also to kind of help prevent sellers to run into these issues rather than later deal with the consequences.
Exactly. The idea here is to share information, set a foundation to protect your brand before some of these issues arise, right? So I understand that for most private labels or most Amazon sellers in general, at the beginning, you're more focused on revenue, right? And as you grow, generally what happens is someone else will try and piggyback off of your hard work and your success. A lot of times that results in infringing sellers, hijackers, and counterfeiters. So the idea today is to provide some information on how to hopefully prevent that and put yourself in the best position that if it does happen, you can enforce it properly and as quickly and easily as possible.
Well, sounds really good for us. I know you prepared slides as well, so we could follow you along a bit better. So go ahead, share your screen, and we are ready to hear your presentation.
All right. So, as we discussed in the intro, we're going to talk about protecting your private label brand on Amazon. So, we're going to touch on relatively briefly, but trademark infringement, copyright infringement, patent infringement, some of the processes that we use and what you can use on your own to at least get started and put yourself in the best position possible. Okay, so first off, why brand protection matters. Pretty basic stuff here, but protecting listings, of course, right? So profitable listings that you created, that you started, that are attached to your brand. As I mentioned, sometimes what will happen is when others see the success of a listing, a lot of times they're under attack. So we've seen all different kinds of things from simply joining those listings and price cutting. We've seen just manipulation of those listings where it'll look like it's actually not even your brand, even though it is. We've seen all different kinds of issues related to that. But the bottom line here is lost revenue, right? So others that are price cutting you, they're supposed to be selling the exact same product when you join an Amazon listing. Most of the time, that doesn't happen when we're referring to private label brands, right? So you're defending against that lost revenue, infringing or unauthorized sellers, and minimum advertised pricing or MAP violations, right? When this happens and these hijackers or counterfeiters join these listings, a lot of times it also impacts customer trust, right? So we'll see things like poorly cared for products, damaged products, expired products, or just ones that are altered. So in general, you want to be on the lookout for when these sellers do join the listings. And what I'm going to talk about is if that does happen, how to put yourself in a position to be able to enforce it the right way. Because a lot of times what happens is sellers don't do that, right? So they'll see a listing, they'll see another infringing seller join that listing, and they'll blatantly just file. Usually, they'll select the counterfeit button, even though they don't have any proof that the items are counterfeit. And I'm going to discuss this as well, why you shouldn't do that, and how sellers are penalized by Amazon when they do. Okay, so it's more than just the trademark. Again, trademark, you want to lay the foundation. Okay, so when you see hijackers, counterfeiters, and unauthorized sellers, you want, they go beyond, right? So sometimes it's even more significant than sellers might think. I've seen some pretty early stage, sometimes even private label brands that run into problems. Okay, so the main thing you want to focus on is not, passiveness. You want to be active. So either have some type of software that has a way of informing you when someone joins that listing, just so you can do a double and triple check to make sure that it's legitimate. Because a lot of times, is it? All right. So I'm going to provide a very brief basis of what the law entails. Okay. So there's something in the US called the first sale doctrine. All that means is that it protects unauthorized sellers from IP infringement claims. So to make it very simple, the first sale doctrine just says that if you buy a product and resell that same product and it's a legitimate purchase and it's not altered in any way, generally speaking, you are allowed to resell that item. Okay. So that in general will protect unauthorized sellers, which here we're talking about how to enforce against them. And here's how you do it. What should private label brands do? Implement material differences. I touched on this during the conference in Prague. So, but I'm going to go over it again, and we're going to add some additional content here for the audience. So, for those who heard the presentation, this might look a little familiar, but we're going to add additional content as well because we only talked about trademark infringement at the conference. Here, we're going to get into copyright and patent as well. Okay, so again, we want to make sure that sales are outside the first sale doctrine, right? That's the idea here. So the argument is even if the items are authentic, if they're materially different, it falls outside of the first sale doctrine, and private label brands can enforce their IP, their trademark against those unauthorized sellers. Okay. Material difference. Here's the definition. It is just any difference between an authorized good and an unauthorized good that a consumer would consider relevant, right? So that sounds very general. Usually we get, well, what does that mean, right? What is that? What is something that a consumer would consider relevant? Here are some classic examples of non-physical differences, right? I didn't even list the physical differences because I think that's generally obvious, right? If someone's selling a product that, let's say, doesn't have the product packaging, that's a physical difference, right? If you go to a Gucci store, you get it in a nice box, right? Because a lot of times that brand, you spend thousands of dollars on whatever product you're purchasing. If you bought a Gucci product on Amazon and it came all disheveled and it came in a plastic bag that looks like it came from a supermarket, it kind of reduces what people think would be the value of that brand. Okay, so that's an example of a physical difference. But in general, we're laying the foundation of non-physical differences. Okay, here are some examples. Applicability of a warranty, right? So putting a warranty or a satisfaction guarantee in place, and then specific requirements that are related to, depending on the type of product, packaging, labeling, and even for some products, temperature and storage controls, for example. Okay, so removing hijackers legally and quickly. So again, we talked about developing material differences. So you want to create distribution agreements that build in those mechanisms to create IP disputes. So strengthening or creating a warranty or satisfaction guarantee, okay? Only applying that to sellers that are authorized. In addition, failure to adhere to quality control requirements, okay? A little typo there. It's supposed to say quality control, and that is going to be also in the distribution agreement, okay? You're also going to include product differences. And when you are removing those hijackers or infringers, you want to reference these differences and then also conduct test buys when they're needed. Okay. And you have to make sure, I mentioned this already, but you have to be precise, right? A hijacker doesn't necessarily mean a counterfeiter. Can't tell you how often we see those two get confused, but Amazon does not view them the same way. So if you file a complaint, be very, very careful to not call someone a counterfeiter unless you have cold, hard proof that they are. Okay. Everything I just talked about is something that it doesn't even matter if the products are authentic. You have a valid basis to enforce your trademark rights against them, right? By creating or developing those material differences. So these are common things that you can't do when the seller is merely unauthorized, right? So you can't blatantly enforce your distribution or your minimum advertised pricing policy. Now, if that's the basis behind it, you can still enforce it legally, but this is not what you are going to want to say when you file complaints, right? So you're developing material differences. That's the basis behind filing trademark infringement, not because they're selling the product at a lower price point than you would like. Okay. Very, very important. So you can't use enforcing distribution or map pricing violations. You can use material difference arguments. Okay. And then just some general tips here. Be very careful with how it's wording and document the infringement before reporting. Okay. Because once that's filed, it's the information sometimes is gone. So you want to make sure that you can document it if you ever need it down the road. Here's a quick cheat sheet, right? So for trademark infringement, you're first going to identify those infringing sellers. As I mentioned, you're going to develop those real material differences by creating the distribution agreements that build in the IP disputes. You're going to add a warranty or satisfaction guarantee. Once you have all that, you're in a position to enforce your trademark rights by submitting cease and desist letters to those infringing sellers and then accurately reporting the IP infringement. Sometimes that will include conducting test buys. And by test buys, I mean purchasing or testing to make sure a product does match, identically with the branded product that you're offering. So that covers trademarks. Now, copyright infringement enforcement, okay? I'm going to run through this relatively quickly, but what can be protected in general? It is product packaging and labels, images and graphics, and most often we see descriptions on Amazon, photograph copying, and product instruction manuals, okay? So sometimes these are blatantly copied and pasted. So when you have that, it is very important that it's filed correctly. It's not necessarily counterfeit. It's that it's copied and it's infringing on your copyright rights. Keep in mind, while I put here under enforcement proof of ownership, such as a registration is very helpful, it is actually not required to register your copyright. Still, generally would recommend it because it's a lot easier to provide that proof of ownership. But in general, you actually do not need a registration to enforce your copyright. Okay. And then here you're going to use distinct custom content and be very, very cautious of stock content. We've seen issues related to that where sometimes sellers, specifically private labels, think that they're purchasing, certain photographs or think that they have the rights to resell some content and or use photographs or instructions. And it turns out that, it was actually copied from someone else. So you have to be on the lookout as well, not just for someone copying your work, but also the reverse as well. And then Apex, right? So this is Amazon's Patent Evaluation Express program. This is a very fast and cost-effective program, but it's only for U.S. utility patent owners. So not design patents, not patents that are owned in different countries. Okay, this is for US and utility patent owners, and it specifically involves the removal of infringing ASINs on Amazon outside of court. Okay, the way this works is there's a neutral evaluator, similar to an arbitrator, who reviews arguments from both parties. It's a very, very straightforward decision. The both sides have to put up, if they choose to participate in the program, they both have to put up $4,000. The winner gets their money back, the loser does not, right? So as the patent owner, if you're successful, you get your $4,000 back and the listings remain deactivated. Okay. And keep in mind, this decision, it doesn't have anything to do with damages. This decision only affects Amazon listings. Common mistakes to avoid. This could apply to different areas of IP, but of course, don't file baseless complaints. Never claim that the seller is simply unauthorized. It's okay if you mention that, but a lot of times I actually would not suggest it. You're certainly not going to want to say that a product is counterfeit without a test buy, so without proof. And Amazon does not care that you were the owner or you created a listing, and they also don't care about map pricing violations. These are the most common mistakes that private label brands, when they file IP complaints, they use terminology from one of these four issues. Okay, so I would avoid all of them. Enforcing without risking your account. Okay, so again, the common mistake is filing false IP complaints. And when that's done, Amazon will penalize you. Usually it's an account suspension, it's brand registry suspension privileges. I've also seen suspension of the report infringement tool. All things you really don't ever want to have to deal with. So that's why I bring it to you. We've seen all of them happen. So if you can avoid it, I would highly recommend it. All right. So final words. Brand protection, it's not optional. Okay. So it really is an essential tool when, as your brand is growing, even in the early stages, these are things to put in place. Okay. If you wait, a lot of times that's where damage happens. Okay. It's a lot harder down the road. If you let someone gain some steam, they can attack several of your listings, they can impact the brand. I've seen it happen. So start building your strategy today. Okay. Even if you're just in the earlier stages, I know a lot of the Orange Click audience is not. So even if you're a more experienced seller, I would bet that you probably have seen one or several of the issues that I'm talking about today. All right. And then here is our contact information. I'll leave this on the screen for just a second.
Well, David, thank you so much for going over all of these main topics. Of course, we could probably spend hours going very depth with all of them, and I assume there are also different cases based on the products and companies, etc. But what would you say? Is there like a number one issue or topic that most sellers are usually reaching out to you that is like far more requested than others?
So specifically under the brand protection umbrella, which is most relevant for this audience, is removing unauthorized sellers. And usually those unauthorized sellers cause all kinds of damage for the brand. It starts with taking over listings, selling products that are damaged in some way, offering really poor customer service. I've seen expired goods. I've seen, depending on the product, lids that are falling off, the product falling apart. Basically, other infringing or unauthorized sellers that are selling product that's just damaging to the brand, hitting revenue, causing customers to view them in a different light.
All right. And obviously, we know there is also Amazon brand registry, which should also protect or help Amazon sellers. Can you explain a little bit how does it work, or what kind of protection does it actually offer for brands, or where it's actually not covering brands that will, as sellers might think so?
Sure. So brand registry, this is how it works, right? So when you file through, I'm going to use the US as an example. For the USPTO, it's the United States Patent and Trademark Office. You file a trademark application, right? The USPTO gives you a serial number as soon as you file it, right? You can use that serial number to enroll in brand registry. That offers a lot of protection for enforcement purposes like we're talking about. That's why it's usually one of the early things that a brand will do to enroll in it. Some of the issues I talked about are when these kinds of things happen where you see, an infringing seller or someone that's selling below map, they'll file complaints and then Amazon will penalize them if the report of IP infringement isn't accurate. So brand registry is a great tool. I think it's a must for all brands. I mean, I don't think that's really in dispute. So it's certainly important. This is more in protecting the brand registry tool where you can report. It's a lot easier to report infringing sellers. So if you start messing around with this, or you don't conduct a test buy, or you just try and report someone for being unauthorized in and of itself, sometimes we see it happen all the time, still today, even just saw it a few days ago, multiple accounts actually, for that exactly, for reporting IP complaints inaccurately against other sellers. And then sometimes it's product catalog issues where sellers will try and offer another well-known branded product, but do it in a way that makes it look like it's under your brand. So Amazon recognizes it as a Dave's brand listing, for example, but they're really just selling Nike products. So things like that. So you got to just be on the lookout for abuse and don't think you won't get caught. Amazon eventually will find it, even if it's not today or tomorrow. They're pretty good at tracking these kinds of things.
Okay, very interesting example you just brought. Well, very interesting topic. I'm sure your days are never boring helping Amazon sellers out. So to end this video, can you once more highlight what are the main services you help Amazon sellers with, and also highlight the website address again? Of course, we're gonna link everything down to the video description below as well. And before David kind of gives us the final summary about the services, I also wanted to say that if you're watching this video and you have questions about any of these topics David just covered, feel free to leave them as comments below as well, because then we were going to ask David to come back to the video and answer your questions. But yeah, what's the website address to reach out to you and learn more, and what are the main services?
Sure. So the website is damlawfirm.com. So that's D as in David, A as in Apple, M as in Mary, and then lawfirm.com. The main services, we offer brand protection services, so brand enforcement. We help create these IP disputes, right? So or not create IP disputes, but draft these agreements that are needed in order to enforce intellectual property, as well as warranty and satisfaction guarantee language. We help with Amazon suspensions. So if seller is ever suspended, whether it's a listing or account suspension, we assist. If Amazon is withholding funds for whatever reason, hopefully you never have to deal with that, but unfortunately still comes across our desk almost every single day. Inventory issues, that's Amazon's fault, damaged, missing, lost inventory. So that's all under the arbitration umbrella. And if you're ever thinking about an exit, selling your Amazon business, or you have some type of other business related needs, such as contract drafting, negotiations, things of that sort. So basically any legal related issue on Amazon for the most part. Never try and use the word any, but I would say that sums it up.
Very good. Well, thanks again, David, for taking the time to join me to help to educate our Amazon sellers out there, and hopefully everyone found this video useful. So thanks again, and I hope to see you soon, either on our YouTube channel or at our next event.
Thank you, Lisette. Thanks for having me.
I hope this video will help you to protect your Amazon brand from unauthorized sellers. And if you need any legal help with Amazon brand protection, get in touch with David Miller. You'll find the link in the video description below. And if you enjoy the content we create, don't forget to hit like and subscribe buttons. And if you have additional questions or comments about the content you just listened, leave them in the comment section below. And now I recommend you to watch another video where you will learn how to stay compliant when selling in Amazon Europe. So check this out. Check this out.